Hello, everybody.
Hello.
All right, just making sure that volume is working, not choppy on Facebook there. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's having a good evening here. We're gonna wait a few more minutes before everybody comes in before we start making official introductions. Rick, how's your week? I know you hosted the draw stream yesterday, right? For the thing
Yeah,
that you, Terry, and Chris have been doing.
yeah. Unfortunately, only Terry ended up showing up. Well, besides myself, was supposed to be Terry's week, but he wasn't sure, so
Um,
I just ended up posting it. He's gonna host next week. I might be able to get there for a bit next week, but
yeah,
you know, hopefully Chris will be able to get there next week.
yeah,
But that went pretty good. Trying to one of the three of us do it every Saturday.
yeah. And just to remind everybody, for those in the chat, if you guys can like and share the stream, same way it's the more friendly people in here. If you haven't already, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to do our best to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So let me just do something here real quick. Everybody.
And also, got my gonna be getting my comics sometime this week. Canadian Shield 2 and Snowdrift 1, most likely Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
So that's gonna be a neat show off.
All right. So let's see. Will you be displaying those on your Tuesday stream if you get them?
If I get them in time on Tuesday, yeah. Otherwise, I'll probably end up having a special Wednesday afternoon stream or something like that. Early evening or late afternoon, something like that. Because I want to do, or maybe I'll do a special high
Um,
noon stream.
uh, all right. I just got a message back from Tommy that he's out walking his dog right now, so he'll probably pop in.
Yeah,
Uh,
when he's
uh,
done the dog.
uh, yeah. So, anyways, we're just as I was telling you before, though, and we'll probably discuss a little bit more when we have a few more people on here. But there was that situation with the Dilbert creator Scott Adams, and I when I was looking over, there was nothing about that struck me as him being racist or segregationalist. He, if any, in fact, if anything, he was actually kind of like what they had said according to the article. Anything, he was a lot of it was he was just reiterating, reiterating what Don Lemon, the
Yeah,
CNN anchor, had said, who happens to be black.
yeah.
And some of what, even what Don Lemon had said had also been mentioned by another black man by the name of Bill Cosby. The whole
Yeah.
thing about pull up your
Also,
pants.
Chris Rock had said something similar too a long time ago. Um, but yeah, I saw the video. Um, Depending on your definition for segregation, I might say that, but he's doing it more based on facts. But he's doing it more like, do
Well, no,
you want car?
I think. Hey, Terry.
He's like,
Not
do
much.
you want?
I sent you the link earlier. If you want to hop in the chat, if you want to hop in the studio here and join us in the studio. So I sent you the link this morning, so you should have it. So if you want to hop in and join us, join us, join us. There's actually a
But
song that goes like that.
but he was more like, do you want crime around you or not? Do you want to live in a crime-ridden area or not a crime-ridden area? And unfortunately, statistics, numbers are what they are. You know, you can try and misrepresent them or lie about them, but somebody's going to find out the truth.
Yeah. Well, I think usually when people use the term segregationalist, the connotation of it is that it's implied forced segregationalist, like
Yeah,
like like basically like what they were trying to do before the Civil Rights Act of the
yeah,
'60s. Basically that's what that's when people use the term segregationalist, it's meant in a way to harken back to that time. Basically, it's trying to it's like
for,
it's a way to shut down a conversation that you don't want to have. If you just start accusing people of something vile like being an ist or a phobe, then
uh,
that shuts down the conversation because you get off track, you get off point, you're sitting there stuck defending yourself from a stupid accusation.
yeah, and then then there's people of color that are trying to segregate themselves from whites.
Uh
You
huh.
know, it's if some black person got up and said the exact same, pretty much the same thing, but oh, I think all black people should segregate themselves from white. You know, they would be cheered on and not ostracized. But
But well, I personally from and granted we got more into this conversation than I wanted to at this point. I wanted to wait till we had a few more people in here to
yeah,
contribute to the conversation. But but again, I often get the feeling a lot of times that there are not every black person, mind you, but there is a certain amount of them within the black community that secretly in their heart hopes to kind of have apartheid in America,
oh
or
yeah,
in the West.
and that's a very small minority of them. Most of them just want to go about their lives, live their lives, and not be bothered by
The
anything.
unfortunate that very small minority, it just happens to be they just happen to be a very loud minority as well.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Right.
Or you would think so. Unfortunately, it's becoming. Yeah, sure, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but if only if it's certain squeaky wheels.
Yeah. So basically, his publisher of his strip, a
Yeah.
lot of the newspapers that were carrying this strip, they're basically trying to basically just cancel
Oh,
him over it.
according to what I heard with Mark Dice, every paper that was carrying Dilbert is no longer carrying it,
Hmm.
and his publisher has said, "Screw off. I'm not representing you anymore."
Yeah,
But
that's pretty
the
much what
guy,
happened. That's the article I was covering and Bounding into Comics the other day. So
but he has the money now that it's fu money. I'll say what I want and screw you. You can't cancel
well,
me.
if he wants to turn Dilbert into like a comic book, he could always go the way that you guys all go and go the independent route. You know,
Yeah, he could put. Well, what I think's been put into comic book strips or whatever, collection or whatever you want to call anthology, sort of like you had for the we've had for been reading through in the comics retrospect. But he could do it all, Dilbert. But then again, he'd have to publish himself,
well,
you know,
I
and he
do.
probably has the money for that. But
Uh, I do remember there was even a TV series for Dilbert a
yeah,
while back there too. They did make a TV adaptation, an animated adaptation of the comic. So that was pretty interesting too. So
yeah,
I didn't watch it myself, but
yeah,
um,
same here. But like I said, he has the money to say, I'm going to say what I want to say. And I don't care if you cancel me because I'm going to live in fairly peace, In some ways, it was a way of retiring. he, you know, he probably believes what he said, but at the same time, it's like, I want to retire. This is a way to retire. Get everybody to cancel me.
but
And he still has, millions in the bank probably.
mhm.
And depending on how well you want to live, if his house is paid off and all he's really has to do is pay utilities and groceries every month, maybe the
And
odd special thing.
if he's invested smartly enough to where he still has an income, even if he's not doing the Dilbert strip anymore.
Yeah.
So
Lots of these, Hollywood types, they have the money, the screw you money. I'm gonna say what you want, and not worried about being canceled. But they don't, you know. And if enough of them stood up like that, you know, you know,
mhm.
you can only go so far, cancel so many people, and then you don't have Hollywood, right?
Right. Well, yeah, because basically, if you just try to cancel them, they can always go and grow in a niche environment, and because what happened with Vic
Yeah.
Mignogna, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm not
he-
even saying growing a niche audience. They can, have it where they can live comfortably the rest of their lives and not work another day in their life.
Mhm.
You know, but when you're getting multi-million dollars per, movie or episode, or four or five hundred, a
Yeah, and
few
I
hundred.
wonder. I do kind of wonder about that too. Even if they cancel the strip and no new strips coming out, would he still be receiving royalties from the strips he's already done?
Well, unless they're being printed, he can't. Unless somebody's printing them, they
Oh,
can't. He
okay.
won't get any royalties. Books that are out there that are being bought, like I doubt. I'm not sure whether any nobody's going to be publishing them anymore. But still, like I said, and we said, or that I heard, he has enough money probably in the bank to say screw you.
Hmm.
You know, I'm gonna say what I want to say, and I can live comfortably. Like this isn't quite the same, and obviously I don't wish this happened, but my dad owns a house up, you know, north, in Ontario here, and if he were to die, I get it. I could either live in it or sell it, and from what I heard, it's worth 400 to $450,000
Hmm.
right now.
Hmm.
On that money, I could live probably fairly comfortably for all, if not the rest of my life.
Right.
Because
I think what you're trying to say is for most of, if not the rest of your life.
yeah, because rent is around $1,000 a month. Probably it goes up a little. So
And then, well, theoretically too, you could live in it, you could sell it. You could also, if you wanted to, you could also rent it out to people as well.
yeah,
I don't know if you'd want to though, because with being a renter, with being kind of a a landlord or what have you, that just opened up bunch more responsibility that you may
yeah,
not want. Like if things have to be fixed or what have you. There's like all that too. So, anyways,
yeah.
we've been talking a while here. So I think it would be a good time, even though there's only the two of us here apparently. But um, Rick, if you want to give a more formal introduction and share any links in the chat, you know,
Uh,
um, and for your show, for your project, what have you, go for it.
well, as people might have surmised, my name is Rick, uh, and with my thing there, I'm Cross Comics. That's my company. I make Christian comic books. Right now, probably to Tuesday or Wednesday, I have a project in demand. Canadian Shield 2 and Snowdrift 1. Um, and you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, and all that. And I will put a link to my channel on in the chat in a second here.
All right, just so it's in there for people to see. Um, yeah. So, anyways, so that was quite an interesting conversation there.
Yeah.
We were having. But as I was telling you, when I was covering the story the other day, based on what he was saying, and based on what my understanding of what people usually mean when they try to highlight that for you. Um,
That's a link to my YouTube channel, of course.
and and you know, based on what I was seeing when I was reporting on it, and based on my general understanding of the term segregationalist, I don't think he was actually being racist or segregationalist.
Yeah, I don't think he was intentionally. Well, obviously, I don't think he was being
Because
racist, and I do.
usually when people, as I said earlier, usually when people use the term segregationalist, it usually is implying that it's somebody who believes in forced segregation, meaning that, you know, yeah,
Yeah,
we gotta keep blacks and whites separate.
yeah,
Like in the bus, blacks sit in the back, white can sit in the front, or whites can sit wherever they want, while blacks have to sit in the back.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that
Obviously, I don't think he's that either. It's just I think he's more. Well, I want to be in a neighborhood that I feel is safe, not crime ridden. Unfortunately, most of
and
these crime ridden
as the
neighborhoods.
article pointed out too, and as we mentioned earlier too, is that he was more repeating and reiterating what other people had actually said before he said it.
Yeah,
Don Lemon from CNN, that was a big crust of what he was just repeating. It's like, it's not that I believe this. It's that this is what this guy said over here. And he was just pointing that out. I don't. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because he was repeating it, reiterating it, necessarily means he was necessarily agreeing with it.
yeah.
But
And I wouldn't even say Don Lemon, who is black, is racist or whatever. I think he's doing a job most of the time. I think he sucks at it, but that's a different point altogether.
yeah, that's
You know,
another discussion for another day. And then on the one thing about the whole idea of telling young black men to pull up their pants because it was something that was started in prison. Don Lemon's not the only person, not the only black person in particular who's mentioned that. I know Bill
yeah,
Cosby mentioned that too a few years ago.
yeah. Chris
So,
Rock too on I think Saturday Night Live has said stuff about it.
and yet, if they say it, it's not racist.
Yeah,
But Scott Adams, who's white, he just reiterates what they said. You know, but I don't. I think it's more than just it being what you do in prison and some of the implications and all that. But I think just as a whole, I think just as just having manners.
yeah.
You don't want to be running around with your shorts all with
Your underwear hanging
your
out.
Johnny's
See,
on display. It's like you know that just makes you seem uncouth. Like you're not cultured. Like the granted, I know it's more of a street thing. It's more of an urban thing. But I think the comparison that some people would understand, it'd be one of those things where your parents might, if a parent saw their
yeah,
child running around like that, might ask, "Were you born in a barn or what? You live in a barn or what?" You know, um, kind of indicating how just uncouth, uncivilized that behavior is. You know, so that's my overall take on it. But as you said, he's got enough. He's got enough money to where if they did cancel him, he probably had as long as he invested wisely and still had some money coming in, so he could take care of his main bills, food and shelter and all that.
yeah.
He should be fine.
Yeah, and if he's got money in the bank, which he probably does, I would hope a few 100,000, a few million, his house is paid and all that. All he has to do is pay his property tax and buy food and pay his utilities.
uh-huh.
Maybe that's a couple grand a month for him.
Yeah.
Depending on where he lives, I don't even know where he lives. Like
Yeah. Well, if he lives in California, it might be a little bit more of a problem because California's got one of the highest, highest,
property tax rates.
well, property tax rate, but also cost of living. Cost of
Yeah,
living is where I was going with it. So
yeah,
yeah,
for
that's where
food
I
and
was.
stuff like that.
Yeah. So all right. So let's see. Well, let's see. What else can we talk about here? Again, I was hoping before we got into even the comic side of the discussion as well. I was um, we'd have. Well, I guess we can move. We can talk about something else before we get in, and we can, I guess, wait a little longer to see if we can see if anybody else eventually shows up here before we get into the comics that from the other night. Um, one of the other things I was covering this past week through CBR is it seemed like there was a number of voice actors or Japanese seiyuu. Why there was a couple who passed away, and then there was an American voice actor who kind of got in trouble. Actually, there was another seiyuu who actually got in. A couple of voice actors got in. Well, one of the American one, it wasn't as much him getting into trouble. Um, uh, Cost of living includes housing, food. Yeah, we know that, Terry. Um,
Yeah, which would consider property taxes possibly. I would think
but
for most.
there were like four stories on voice actors. Two of them passed away, and then one essentially got kind of canceled, blacklisted in Japan for basically having an affair with a staffer. And then there's an English voice actor who they confused with Justin Bieber. Now, the voice actor in question. I'll start with that one because that one was kind of fun. That one was kind of hilarious when you looked at it. So there is a voice actor out of Dallas. Okay, so initially he would have been considered being part of Funimation's staff, but now it's Crunchyroll. Okay,
Yeah.
guy is named Justin Briner.
Right.
Justin Briner. So Briner. Okay. Um, he's known for providing the English voice. Probably his most famous role doing the English voice of Deku from My Hero Academia. But he's
Oh, okay.
actually been in a few others. Like he was Luck in trying to think of it. Luck Volta. It was the one with Aspen. I'm trying to can't even think of it now, but it was a sorcerer one. But um, anyways, we have Tommy's here. Hey, Tommy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, metal.
Well, you're here now, so if you'd like, if you want to do a formal introduction, introduce yourself. Maybe you want to share some links to whatever work you're doing or your channel. Why don't you go for it there?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm the metal. I've been here a few times. I run a show called The Vomitorium, and I make comics under the brand X Dynamis Chaos, which I can drop the link to that one. Just got done walking a dog, and now I'm eating dinner. But I figured I'd hop on.
All right. Well, you got here just in time. Well, we were just finishing up talking about the Scott Adams scenario. Um, I don't know if you had heard about that. You know who Scott Adams is?
Oh yeah, my co-host never shuts up about him.
Well, Scott Adams, of course, is, for those of you know, well, we've already been talking about him, but the guy who basically created Dilbert. I'm sure you probably heard some of the controversy. Actually, I should put that up a little longer for people to see that. But
Yeah,
you
I
heard
think
about the
the latest
controversy.
stuff is still linked up to what he said about like how he helped like black communities his entire life with money, and now he said stay away from them. Is that the current one, or is he in yet another controversy?
Well, sort of that. I don't know whether I hadn't heard that he helped black communities.
Well, I do remember reading that in the article too, when because I covered that article the other day. But based on what I saw, I didn't find anything he said really to be racist or segregationalist.
Oh yeah, I didn't actually. I usually think that he is out of his mind with some things, but this is one of the few things that he said that I like. No, that makes sense based on your
Well, and
experience.
a
I don't
lot of
blame
it
you.
is this isn't necessarily something that he just kind of came up with on his own. I mean, if anything, a lot of
Yeah.
what he was saying, he was reiterating or repeating what others had said, primarily black people. Okay, Don Lemon for one. That's the crust of what. We're back to this, and we'll get back to what I was talking about in a moment. Once we finish up getting Metal's opinion on or his take on some of this. Terry's here now. Hey, Terry.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and do. If you give you a shot at the more formal. Going to tell everybody who you are, share any links to your channels or any projects you're doing. Feel free to do so.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Well, for those new here, you can usually find me doing any type of draw along. You can find me on Instagram on the Mighty Geek Studios. As of right now, I'm about to start a new challenge: 30 days of making mini comics.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, this is a challenge started by Frank Salazar.
Yeah. Why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves a moment? Because I'm going to step away from the computer for a quick moment, but I'll be right back. So why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves?
Cool.
So by like mini comics, you mean like comic strips or single pages or shorts?
Ash cans.
Oh, I do like ash cans.
I love ash cans.
I think they're underrated. They're a great way of just getting people interested in a story in a very short time and cheap.
I know. If you've been drawing as long as I have, it's like that's the first thing you learn to make.
Yeah, and like you could just print them at home too if you just want to give them out to people.
Yeah, that
sounds like a fun challenge.
Hey, you take something like this. This would be the front and back cover of an ash can.
Yeah.
All done on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
I've been thinking of preparing some ash cans to print out and give out on Free Comic Book Day sometime.
Yeah. Oh, these are some of the ones I found at my local comic shop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Malibu. I remember Malibu did a lot of them in the 90s. and that was fun. Even though it only gave you a preview gave you part of the story, it sent you looking for the rest of it.
Yeah, it's a good little dangle, little bait on the fish hook, really. If you think about it.
That's all it is. And this one came with a video game. You read this and then you play the game.
Oh, I know Perfect Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, you read this one and then you play the game to get the rest of the story.
Cool.
Hey, Shadowhawk here. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, Shadowhawk.
How you doing, man?
Shadowhawk, I sent you the link earlier if you want to jump into the studio here and join in on the conversation. You can also plug your channel and stuff like that. I think I gave you a wrench already, so if you want to share your link in the chat as well.
Yeah, he has a wrench.
Yeah, I just checked myself. So hopefully, if you want, go ahead and because I sent you the and keep going with the metal. Okay. So I sent you of course, the link to the StreamYard here earlier. So you can go ahead and come on in and join us. So yeah, so we were just finishing up. I was getting Metal and Terry's views on the whole thing with the Scott Adams and Dilbert creator. But basically,
Well,
when I was just to kind of sum up from what I was saying, I didn't necessarily think think what he said was racist or segregationist. I think he was just repeating what some other black people were noted to have said.
I think it also depends on there's a lot of nuance to
yeah,
that situation. Depends which
there
communities
is.
you're talking about, right? Like I grew up in the Dallas area of Texas. I went to a majority black high school. Lots of great people there. It's a very tight knit community, has that southern type of family community to it. But I'm sure if you
Mhm.
interacted with people in, say, like Baltimore or something, you'd have a completely different impression or opinion on different communities.
Oh, you would.
Yeah. Like I said, he was more like, I don't really want to live in a crime-ridden, community, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of these crime-ridden communities have
Yeah.
a lot of black people.
Or it,
It is what it is.
or in general, any place where there's a lot of low income people living.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. The only reason there's not a lot of crime in Appalachia is because everybody lives so far apart from each other. It's when you get poor people and you cram them in like sardines, you're just bound to get a lot of crime.
Yeah.
I understand,
Besides,
Shadow.
most of the people living in the Appalachian Mountains, they live there just to get away from everybody. People
Yeah, I mean,
can
there's
be
crime
annoying at times.
in a degree, but most of their crime is like doing drugs they're not supposed to be doing.
You're right.
Well,
But if you,
Rick had made an interesting point earlier how a lot of black people just simply, like most people, just want to be left alone. It's because I made a
true.
point earlier how now, granted, it's not all black people. It's a certain segment of the black community
Hmm.
that seem to want to bring apartheid here to North America.
Yeah.
You're talking about communists.
Well, they
Well,
don't claim to be communists, but
They act like
They act like them. That's all that matters.
they act like them.
but
When you act like
I'm
a
saying
certain
that
thing, you'll be called
there
a
just
certain
seems to
thing.
be, as I said, there just seems to be a segment, not the entire community, mind you. There's a segment
Well,
within the black community that seem to want to try to get revenge on the evil white people who enslaved them hundreds of years ago and want to try to
Well, I
bring
think that's
apartheid to.
part of the problem, right? Is I
yeah.
wouldn't even consider all of them a community. Like that segment is a community of its own that
Yeah.
isn't
True.
necessarily a part of any other one because communities are really you can have two forms. You can have a local community or a thought community, right? Because the
Yeah.
internet's
Yeah.
and even just media in general has extended things to where you can have communities that aren't entirely local, but they're still local in thought, right? Once you get
Yeah.
outside
Hmm.
of the same I guess, faith or ideology as somebody else, you're technically not in their community anymore. So there is a very specific community that is causing problems for everyone else.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, they forget, or not taught a few facts. The first slave owner in the states was black.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that it was black people selling black people over in Africa to the ships to ship them
Yeah.
over. You know,
Yeah. But
That's
that's
true.
also like and
and,
they don't see this as the same
uh,
principle I have when it comes to like simping online, right? It's like you can
Uh-huh.
blame women who are selling themselves, but more blame goes to the people that are making a market for it, right? So there's two sides to
Right.
everything. It's like everyone is to blame in it, but it
Keep
is
the
kind of wrong that
conversation
they're
going,
only
guys. I'm
ever
going to
trying to
step
blame
away
that one
again for a
side.
moment. I'll be right
All
back.
right. All right.
and I was going to say the other thing they
Yeah.
tend to forget is a lot of white people fought, and died, you know, in the the North South War, the Civil
Well,
War,
the
Oh,
thing is,
and
there's
that
something
wasn't
else
the
you'll
even
Civil
never.
War really wasn't about slavery.
and that's what I was going
It
to
was like
say.
a
It wasn't
tangential
totally.
result of it.
Right.
Now, if you want to give anybody credit, I would say the British Empire after a certain
That's-
time did actually
that's
wage
what I was-
wars, overseas
Stop
to end the
slavery.
conflict.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's not taught anywhere except in Britain.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
It really should be because it's
Yeah.
Well,
I was
hell,
going to say
Canada was
the
a part
whole
of that because they were
North-South
still
thing
part of the
was.
empire at the time.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the North-South thing wasn't completely slavery. It was one of the issues, but
the
I'm
major
not sure how.
issue of the Civil War was states'
Economics.
rights, economics, and
I
states'
would actually
rights.
say, yeah. Well, the states' rights came from the economics, right? Because they didn't have,
Yeah.
they wanted the right to be able to choose how they handled their economy. The
Right.
southern states were getting much richer than the northern states, and they weren't getting like the taxes they wanted out of it and stuff like that.
Right.
And it ultimately boiled down to, well, what was fueling their economy? Slavery.
Mhm.
So that became like a tangential issue that the
Right.
North could use against the South, even though there might have been a few people in politics, but like almost nobody in charge actually cared about slavery. That was just like a cudgel. They freed the slaves in the Confederacy before they actually freed them in the Union.
I know,
Yeah.
which debunks a whole lot of arguments.
Yeah, and there were black people fighting for the South too. So
Yeah,
and,
Yeah,
and
a lot
they
of them were
weren't
promised their
forced-
freedom if they fought for that.
true. But the
It was
thing
just a
is,
mess.
these
Yeah, history
things
is
are
a
not
mess.
taught in schools.
They're
Yeah,
not. No.
yeah, because it goes against the narrative.
It's always going
I think-
against the narrative.
The main thing everybody needs to understand, and this is what I wish we would teach in schools, is that history is just a mess, as much of a mess as the modern day is.
Oh yeah,
History is more screwed up than any other point in time. We all know this. If you want to go back and research slavery, it will shock you.
yeah, and it's not like black people are the only people ever enslaved in all of history.
We can go to Eastern Europe and count. It would take us a while to count how many whites were slaved in Eastern Europe.
Or probably even enslaved in Africa, maybe
Or
too.
Asia. There was actually a
Asia.
point where in I
It's
think it might have been
slavery is a
Qing.
worldwide issue.
It might have
Yes.
been Qing, I think. I think Qing was the first emperor to abolish slavery in China. But that didn't go over very well, and he was
No, it didn't.
assassinated like 20 years later, and they brought it back.
Back. Mhm.
Yeah. Anyways,
Seriously,
Maybe we should get off to a different topic.
well, yeah, I was gonna go back to the voice actor. It's kind of funny how you came in just as we had started talking because I was moving the conversation along to talk about some Japanese seiryu and a voice actor. There were like 4 situations with voice. 2 of them passed away. 2 seiryu. There was another one who was kind of blacklisted, because he had an affair. And then there's an American voice actor who was who apparently was confused by a fan with Justin Bieber.
That's pretty funny.
Well, I'm going to
That
go
is.
with the story of the American voice. I had started on that one first. So, and I know, Metal, you probably would know this name, Justin Briner.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, he's a voice actor based in Dallas, there, formerly Funimation, now Crunchyroll. Of course, his most famous role is as Deku from the English voice for Deku in My Hero Academia. Well,
Yeah.
apparently there was a recent incident recently. Granted, I don't really follow too much on Justin Bieber or his life or whatever. I know some people do, but I really couldn't care less. However,
I'm Canadian, and I couldn't care less.
Thank
but
you.
I guess here's kind of what happened. So I guess there was some situation with him and Selena Gomez who were, I guess, in a relationship. And then I think something happened. A fan of Selena and Justin, Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber decided to voice his opinion. But however, on Twitter, of course, on Twitter and going after, supposedly trying to go after Justin Bieber on Twitter, just going off on him.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And he went off against the voice actor.
The only problem is I said Justin Bieber and Justin Briner have very similar looking and sounding names.
Mm-hmm.
Take a wild guess at what happened.
They tried to cancel Brian for Bieber.
Well, yeah. Well, not necessarily cancel, but basically, he, thinking he was going off on Bieber's Twitter page. He actually was going off on Briner. And what makes this even funnier, what makes this kind of even funnier, is that so
did Briner play along for a bit?
Well, okay,
that's what I want to know.
Here's something else about this too. So Justin Briner has a sister named Haley, spelled Hayley. Now, as I understand it, Justin Bieber is married to Haley Baldwin, spelled Hailey.
Oh.
Supposedly, Haley, I guess, had said something about the situation, and that drew even more heat. So this whole thing was kind of a humorous thing. I was, going over the article the other day, from
this thing was a real cluster fudge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of fun. It's like Justin Briner even, he even posted that tweet at one point. It's like, and he goes, "I didn't do anything."
He didn't do anything, and he's getting blamed for everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm pointing. One of the things I'm pointing out when I'm covering the story, of course, is I can get they kind of have similar names, but no.
Well, this guy, do you not look at pictures?
Nope.
Like your icon, your avatar.
Also, Justin Bieber is known more for being a his primary career is singer.
Yeah, but their avatars are got to be different.
His primary career is as an actor, even though there has been some hints that he's dropped. that he might want to get into the music, get into music at some point as well. But it was just kind of funny because so you have this one fan who wants to go off on Justin Bieber for, I guess, stuff he said about Selena Gomez or whatever. But instead of going to Justin Bieber's Twitter, he goes to Justin Briner's Twitter and goes off on him about it. And he's like, "I didn't do anything."
Yeah, this shows you how much.
Coming after me, dude. I didn't do anything.
Just shows you how much brains these people have. Not that we could make that sort of mistake, but there's, like I said, the avatar picture should tell you something too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you talking about for the guy who went off on Bieber and Briner, or?
Yeah. Like when he, you see the little on Twitter, you see the little thing, like for their avatar, like Mighty Geek would have that, right? I think that's what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like I have a face of the Canadian Shield. You can tell they're two different things.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I think as far as I know,
I don't know what
Justin
Bieber
Briner and Bieber have just their face as their
No. Justin Bieber doesn't even have his face. It's like a blue little teddy bear on it. I did a Google search, or not a Twitter search, like where you type in the names, and I just put in Justin B to see what shows up, and both of them show up if you put in Justin B because they're verified. So they're like
right.
one other verified guy who shows up too between them, and Briner has his face. Mistakenly, you would not think that's Justin Bieber if you've ever seen what Bieber looks like. But Bieber's profile is like this kind of like almost greeting card cartoon blue teddy bear.
Teddy bear.
That is probably something to do with one of his albums or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So you think just looking at that, you can tell the difference?
Tell the difference. One would think, but
they're usually
dealing with the human condition
because their ads are just their names.
Should be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that their names are very similar, but and that would be
I think
easy
they
to
have the same
mistake.
amount of letters. They have a few letters in common, but Bieber, Briner,
Well,
No,
yes, but
it would be
no.
like Matt was saying. There's three names there. It would be easy to accidentally click one, but if you're typing this, hopefully you look at the avatar.
it comes up. Yeah,
No, nobody does that.
No,
no
not
one
at
pays.
all.
No one really pays attention to the avatar unless they're looking for something specific.
Right.
And because hardly anyone ever uses their real face in there on their profile, it makes it even harder.
Yeah.
Well, as you guys know, I'm one of those who is more old school that way.
Mm,
You know, but that whole thing was pretty funny.
Funny.
it was.
But anyways, because I'm gonna have to probably go to the actual articles on the other three things because I do know that one of the two who I know died was actually she died when she was like 35 years old. I think her name was Maun Kurosaki.
Mm.
She passed away. But yeah, I'll see if I can find those particular articles. They were from a few days ago, so it's gonna probably take me a sec to really go back and find those on CBR here because I think those were on Wednesday. I covered those. Oh, actually, okay, no, that. Yeah, there's the one. And then once actually, it didn't seem to go. They were, yeah. So that guy, let's see. Okay, yeah. All right, so yeah, so I found the stories, and actually I didn't have to go. Didn't even though they're from a few days ago, it doesn't look like I had to really go that far back. So yeah, I'll share the screens, and then um, I kind of went over these stories already, so on my show, so I'll just um, I won't try to go over the entire. So there's the first thing I was talking about. Now this guy was pretty old, but this guy was apparently more of a long time. So his name is Shozo Izuka. Dragon
Mm.
Ball Z and Astro Boy voice actor dies at the age 89. So from
Oh
what
wow.
I saw,
I just said, oh wow, for that he
well,
died and how long he
this
lived.
guy was apparently pretty when I looked more into him and stuff like that. Apparently he was um, he leaves behind a vast legacy of roles, notably as Nappa and Android 8 of Dragon Ball. This guy was pretty popular throughout the 70s and 80s. In fact, he was actually provided the voice of Lupin in Lupin the Third, the movie.
Mm.
That was, I guess, one of his first roles. Now, 89, so that would mean that, let's see, that would put him at probably about 1933, 34 when he was born. So, I mean, the guy was coming up in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah.
And I guess that's his real picture right there.
Well,
But obviously,
unfortunately, I don't know most of these people's names, but I do remember Astro Boy, the cartoon. So
yeah. Well, these are what they call the Seiryu or the Japanese voice actors.
yeah.
I still cover it, even though most of us probably wouldn't know because, like, I'm a dubber, so I probably
Oh, I watch a lot of subs.
Yeah.
So do I. I watch a lot of subs also.
So
It's the only way. It's the only way I can keep up with the humor.
Guys' voices before, then probably. at some point.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, in
if I
Japan, they're actually a big deal. Like we barely treat voice actors, especially dubs, because it's like that's not the original voice, blah blah blah. But we
Right.
barely treat them like actual actors or anything like that. But in Japan, voice actors are like legit celebrities that people
They
look up
are.
to and see and stuff.
Well, some of them pull double and even, and I'll get to one of them here in a sec. But some of them pull double and even triple duty doing other, not just like some of
Mhm.
them, like particularly with the women, particularly with the female. Not only are they like voice actors, but a lot of times they're regular they're live actors as well as being idols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Now this is the other story that we were just talking about. My Hero Academia Deku's voice actor gets harassed by a Justin Bieber fan. That's what I was just talking to you guys about.
Mm.
So, and then here's one here. Mount Kurosaki, High School of the Dead, and reincarnated as a sword singer, dies at 35. Now,
that's
apparently,
sad.
That
yeah,
is.
she was a young one, but I think they said something about her passing away from a hemorrhage, maybe a cerebral hemorrhage or something like that. Let's see. The Japanese singer Maun Kurosaki, who dedicated her life to performing songs for various anime properties, has died at 35 years old. The star's official Twitter account recently released the news. The singer had passed away on February 16, 2023. She was rushed to a hospital after collapsing during a live stream, underwent surgery for an epidural hematoma, characterized as bleeding between the skull and the brain's protective membrane.
Ah.
She would eventually succumb to the condition, which was the result of a chronic illness. Her family chose to host. Okay, so just getting the basic information there. Obviously, we don't need the entirety of the, but I was just, so yeah, so that happened, and then this is the last one, and last voice actor news of interest. Jujutsu Kaisen voice actor dropped from feminist anime after affair bombshell. The role of the medicine seller for the anime film Mononoke will be recast due to Takahiro Sakurai's ongoing extramarital affair scandal. So supposedly, this guy got involved with one of his female staff members while he was married, and in Japan, they're a very conservative culture. So even though we do have harem animes and all that, but they're still overall are still fairly. So this was kind of a big news.
Well, it kind of depends, right? So
Yeah.
the bigger problem is that it was a coworker and that his wife wasn't in on it. There is
Right.
kind of a culture that men in a marriage can use prostitution with the wife's permission.
Yeah.
Right, that's an old thing. It's not as common these days, but it's still kind of there in the culture. But doing something with one of your coworkers is not the same thing, right? That's not like a paid
No.
service that you're getting. This is a no-go.
Yeah,
It's
it's
probably considered because it's like considered a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
all about the honor stuff, probably with Japanese culture.
Yeah, but those were some interesting stories that I covered on Wednesday there. Since there wasn't much on, but yeah, yeah. Another story that came out this past week too is that apparently Viz Media is planning on releasing some stuff live on YouTube for free.
Mm.
Oh,
Yes,
nice.
as some people have
Like this.
argued, as kind of a way to get around the piracy issue, according to the article I read. So that was pretty interesting too. There. All right, Terry.
Well, it makes sense, right?
Terry, how
Because
much you were around for the show on Friday, weren't you?
Yeah,
Were you there? How much of the show did you see? Were you there for?
I was there for about half of it.
All right. You want to give your impressions on what RJ and I were reading and all that?
Well, I found it very exciting
Yeah.
because given when it was set, it made a lot of sense. It's how you would portray these types of characters. It was just one of those things where it was like, I wonder if this could be done today. Then there were certain segments where I knew couldn't be done today,
Mm-hmm.
and then it drew me back to the edge of the comic that you and I read with all the gun ads.
Yeah, which were pretty popular back then.
I know. I mean, we had ads for all types of BB guns, air rifles, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Some,
I really, because and RJ commented that it was like kind of a dragnet type situation.
Mhm.
Crime on the Run feature. That one was a pretty good one to read.
Yeah.
That one's pretty fun to read. And then RJ,
Yeah.
I know RJ because we did also read Little Nemo and Slumberland from but in this case, I think by that point it was from Bob.
Oh, I missed it. I love Little Nemo. It's my
Little
favorite.
Nemo is fun. Little Nemo is fun because it's like every character in this strip is like, you want to call them dumb, but they're not. They
that
small.
little
Metal, I still have the stream up, so if you want to go back and watch,
Yeah, I'll go back and watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, because we did. We were
little-
reading. Oh, go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
that Little Nemo one wasn't fishy enough.
You're confusing that with what's come out within the past 20 years.
Yeah. Well, Little Nemo was initially a comic strip back in the early part of the 20th century by Winsor McKay.
It's a
Yeah.
spinoff of,
And son Bob
Dream
eventually
Where
tried
They're
to
Tamed.
revive it in comic books.
Yeah. I played it as a video game on NES.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're not
Little
talking
Nemo, the
about the
remaster.
Disney franchise Finding Nemo.
No. On the NES, there was a little.
There was
Nemo
a game.
Dream
There was a game based on it. Yeah.
I played it too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a
Mhm.
multimedia franchise over the years. Like there's been all
Mhm.
kinds of things. There's like animated movie based off of it. Recently, though, they did a gender swap of the main character. There was the Slumberland Netflix movie with
Mhm.
Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that one was kind of interesting too. I mean, even I kind of got a little like, oh, this happened.
Oh, I liked the movie. I just thought it was a bad
Yeah.
adaptation. But as a
Well, I'm
movie,
talking
it's like
about
a solid 7 out of
Little
10.
Nemo feature
Yeah.
that we were reading the other night there. But yeah, that's why you should check out the Friday shows because, in fact, Rick is going to be joining me this Friday. We're going to be going over comics that went on sale from Harvey. Well, just the one, of course, Speed Comics. So the what Rick I think might call the pre Golden Age Flash guy.
Yeah. I can't wait. Well, hopefully I'm on your show when you do. I think it's Pep Comics number 4 or 5 when the Shield first appears.
Oh man, that's good.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Again, I only have up through the 31st scheduled. So I have Rick, I have you this Friday, and then I have Terry next Friday. I have Tim on the 24th, and then I have RJ on the 31st.
I think that's not till January of 1940. So.
Yeah. So, and we're still back in September of 39. So it's still going to be.
So we got a few months to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just going through September of 1939, it's going to take 7 weeks to go through the material from that.
Yeah.
So
then October, November, December.
Yeah, I don't know yet because I haven't looked ahead to October. I mean, it's getting to the point where like basically going to be covering 9 companies in a matter of 7 weeks here because on April 7th we'll be covering Quality, Standard, and United Features. Now, the reason I sometimes will cover multiple companies is because normally there might be one or two, like in that particular case, United Features and Standard. The books that we'd be wanting to read are not available, so we'll just be going over We'll just be summarizing that. Well, Standard, of course, will be, of course, looking into its early history because that'll be the first time, that we'll be looking at Standard and best, and we would have been reading Best Books #1 if it was available, but the only of the four issue run, the only issue that's I think apparently available from Best Book or Best Comics is issue #2. So, yeah. So that's basically, what we have. But again, Tommy, we're still inside of a month, so we could discuss that a little later if you want to try to pick up the 7th, because I did pitch that idea to you last week, but you said it was a little too long down the road, so you want to,
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit.
But we can discuss that more after the show here. So yeah, so a lot of, let's see. So I think I've pretty much have pointed out a lot of, well, one of the other articles I covered too was from Bounding into College. Apparently, and I know we talked a lot about this, and if you aren't sure if there's going to be many more people talking too much about this, but Yellow Flash was apparently roasting Warner Brothers for allowing a second season to go through.
Of Velma?
Of Velma, yeah.
No. Well, he wasn't the only one.
Oh yeah, you can ignore that link. We were talking about the game a little bit, so I put a link to about a decade ago when I did a little short Let's Play.
Yeah, I put it up just in case people still might want to check that out. Yeah, well, I mean, but as I've even discussed before, as I was covering it, with, I think it was Vera Dark who's one of the ones who's pointing out that the only reason that they probably are going ahead with a season 2 is because they were possibly contractually obligated to do so. They actually,
yeah.
I don't know why you would ever sign a contract like that.
Well, you don't know the show's bad yet, and
true.
Mindy is she's a known product, right? So you're like, okay, we'll sign 2 to 3 seasons with you or something like that. Like they do that from time to time.
Yeah, I guess.
Mindy is a known product, but she's kind of rotten. She's kind of rotten at the core.
But would you say that she's more famous or infamous?
A little bit of both.
Up until recently, right, she was more famous because people liked her in some of the old shows and stuff that she showed up in. Yeah. And in the industry, though, she's definitely still more famous. She's in the in crowd. They like her. So we're talking about who's signing her? Other industry people. Well, of course they would sign a contract with her. They don't know that the show's going to bomb yet.
Yeah, but then again, they do, she gives a pitch meeting. She says what it's about, what she's going to do, or somebody does for her. You might say, okay, we'll give it a chance, but...
Have you seen what else is on TV?
I
don't think they have a clue of what's good or bad or what actually flies with people.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of wonder if William Hanna and Joseph Barbera are turning over in their graves at this point.
Probably. More than likely.
Seeing a bunch of zombies there regurgitating stuff probably not a pretty sight. Maybe they've got to be doing that, considering what Mindy Kaling did to the Scooby-Doo franchise. Like, one of the big controversies that was happening earlier in the series was, albeit it was proven that this wasn't necessarily happening, but one of the things that they had tried to indicate that they were trying to say was happening is that a girl that Norville was taking an interest in or was becoming his girlfriend since he wasn't able to get involved with Velma, supposedly. They were supposedly going to name this girl, a black girl, mind you, Scoob. And that apparently caused some controversy.
Yeah,
You know,
that
so,
He's
would.
gonna name a dog after her. Jeez.
yeah.
I do think, while it still won't be good by any degree, it will be slightly less bad because after seeing season 1, they will probably have more of their hands tied in season 2.
Yeah.
You
Well,
would
I
hope,
mean,
anyways.
but then how? Considering that, I think even by IMDb standard, I think I think it's still down. If it's still down at like 1.3 rate, 1.3 rating, I think I think one, it's like considered the like worst rated animated show of all time, and the third worst rated show period of all time.
I don't think its rating's going to go up either. I just think we've probably seen the height of the cringe because they'll have their hands tied a little bit, but the show is still just going to be a flop, period. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to watch it.
Or very few. But did you guys ever see the live action TV show that they tried to make for Scooby? About
No.
a year ago or so. It's actually
Oh,
slightly better than Velma.
slightly better, but
Did you
all
see it,
around
Mighty
worse.
Key?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Well, let's
I
see.
think you can find it on YouTube.
You can.
I'd say my favorite Scooby Doo series of all time is probably the new Scooby Doo Mysteries from back in the early '70s. It was, of course,
Yeah.
when I was growing up. I mean, having all the celebrities come in and all that. That was
I like those ones.
I like
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
too.
Of the
My
movies.
favorites happened to be when Batman showed up, which was funny.
Yeah, they actually had a couple episodes with Batman and Robin, and as I recall, it was actually Olan. Well, let's see.
I forgot who did the voice of
Olan
Batman.
Soleil and Casey Kasem, who were providing the voice. Olan Soleil, who of course went on to voice Batman in the Super Friends franchise.
I still think the best movie was the Boo Brothers.
Oh yeah,
My
Scooby-Doo and the Boo Brothers.
was
Yeah.
the Ghoul School. Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School.
Ghoul School's pretty good. I like
That's
that
pretty
one. I
good.
like Boo Brothers. I like Reluctant Werewolf. I think all
Yeah.
those three kind of sit at the top of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those
Hopefully-
came out in the mid to late '80s, and they were all pretty interesting. pretty
Hopefully
engaging.
they'll do with Velma what they did with Galactica 1980 after it's done. Try and forget it and say it's not canon, doesn't exist.
I thought they burned that one.
Well, I know that even one of the voice actresses who voiced Daphne in some of the earlier series, the series from the 2000s, Gray Delisle, had also kind of been very critical of the Velma series. And it's kind of funny.
Okay,
It's
you
a
blame
series
her.
that was just so bad that it basically upset everybody.
Yeah, like I said, can you really blame her for being upset about it? I can't. But that's just me.
Well, heck. And when I think, although this is slightly off topic with it, when I think about it, Shaggy's got to get together with Daphne because it's her, him, and the later stuff, her, Shaggy and Scooby.
That's an interesting theory there.
Yeah, it is because there was a series where just Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby, and maybe Scrappy.
And Flim Flam, you're talking about the
13 Ghosts.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, the 13 Ghosts.
Vincent Price lent his voice to that
Oh,
show.
yeah.
Too.
For Vincent Von Ghoul.
Actually, with the
Vincent Von
Vincent Price
Gogh.
one, I think it was just Scooby, Scrappy, and Shaggy.
Yeah, that was I think the Scooby and Scrappy Doo show.
Yeah.
That was in the early '80s. And then, of course, they did have kind of a flashback series back in the late '80s. There, a pup named Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
See, I always thought, for some reason, that they never actually give you any reason to believe this, but it was in my head that Shaggy and Daphne were cousins. because it almost just felt like it fit, right? Because it felt like there were two couples and their dog going on a road trip together.
It did feel that way at some
And then like
some
the fact
time.
that they're really close. She's close to
She's
Scooby.
close,
Like she
yeah.
literally carries snacks for Scooby in her purse. So
Right.
it feels like they
Well,
have
I
a
think
longer term
her and
relationship.
Velma did though in the series.
Yeah.
Her and Velma.
And I always assumed that those two were just cousins, and that's why they were still hanging out together when
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like 13 ghosts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, for the most part, throughout most of Scooby Canaan, was generally implied that Fred and Daphne were the couple, and then Shaggy and Velma may have been slightly a lesser couple. But of
Yeah.
course, because if you remember though, this was a kids' cartoon, so
Right.
they didn't really.
They really didn't
really. There wasn't
showcase
no
that.
like direct.
Yeah.
You know,
At least
direct
not back then.
talk about
I know.
romantic situation. You know,
Was it
Right.
Mystery Inc? One of the more recent shows. They actually did straight up say that Velma and Daphne had a previous relationship. Which I don't know why they went that far, but apparently they just did.
They
that was
did.
one of the more recent shows.
Yeah. It was something they added to it later on.
Yeah. Well, I know that there are a few. I do kind of know of. There are a few kind of quote unquote fetish videos involving people like cosplaying as Velma and Daphne and doing certain things.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into all the specifics there, but just
But I think as a kid, I probably thought maybe Freddie and Daphne were together, but I thought Shaggy and Velma were just there.
Just
They're
there,
just
yeah.
they were just friends.
They would make slight allusions to Fred and Daphne being a couple, but they never really did. If you remember, a lot of times when they'd split, the way they'd split themselves off, sometimes it would be Fred and Daphne splitting off as one group, and then Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby off as another, and then sometimes it was Fred, Daphne, and Velma as one group, Shaggy and Scooby as the other. So,
well, a lot of times when it was Shaggy and Scooby, they just went off to find food by themselves.
Or they were scared and went the other direction.
And they always ended up finding the main villain. Kitchen.
Obviously, it's one of Shaggy's many talents is accidentally finding the villain, because he's a man of 101 talents.
Yeah, we know this, but it's funny how they always found the villain in the kitchen.
Oh, thanks, Britt. Britt's here, just coming from Tug's show.
Hey, Britt. Well, thanks for dropping in. We're feel free if anything we're talking about catches your attention.
And hello, Laura.
Oh, we're getting a Tug raid! Yay! Glad to see you guys here.
Oh,
cool.
If anything that we're talking about grabs your interest, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Also, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get more people in here. And I did send Tug a StreamYard link, so hopefully he will come in and join us, and maybe we can talk some comics with him and all that. Maybe we can get his view on what we were talking about earlier with the whole thing with Scott Adams and Gilbert. So hey, Laura. So hopefully, anyways, let's see. Right now, of course, we're just reminiscing on Scooby-Doo a little bit as we're talking about some of the heat going on with
because of Velma being renewed for a second season.
So
boo.
Yeah. So let's see.
Everything you hold dear shall be corrupted.
Yeah,
or as the self-respecting fans of Scooby-Doo would say, we shall never mention the name of that show under any circumstance.
We all agree, Brett. We all agree.
Well, see, the problem is you have to mention the name of the show because it's one of the main characters from the actual likable
shit.
parts of this
I know.
series.
Yeah.
Even though we don't want to,
You can just call it the Scooby Doo show that shall not be named.
Well, the thing is too is
well,
you know,
I
as
wonder if
we were talking about
I
earlier
wonder if
with
J.K.
that
Rowling will
Velma
let
got
us use that
renewed
one.
because they had actually you know, the theory going out there is that Velma got renewed because, you know, despite the fact that it was just a total flop, they were probably contracted to do multiple seasons. Therefore, they
Well, if
had
that
to
was the
fulfill
case,
the
it
contract.
technically didn't get renewed. They're just filling out the contract.
Right.
If that's the case, yeah. If that's the case,
Well,
then there's not a renewal.
well, you know what I mean.
They
I
could
think
have
you all
canceled the
know what I mean.
contract and accepted the monetary
Yeah, but then they'd have
lot.
to pay out, and
They have to
it
pay out a
probably
lot.
is worth less.
I
Like
guess
they're
that's
probably
kind of
losing
like the
less money
theory they were
continuing
throwing
it than
out
paying out
about
the
the Flash
contract.
film after the whole Ezra Miller scandal came to
Yeah.
light. Now they said, you know, well, actually, in fact, Rick, you might remember this when James was on here before. He talked about that. Yeah, they might just release the Flash film anyways,
And
just to
they
try to
are.
recoup whatever money they could.
And they
Yeah.
are. I've seen the trailers. They have. They are.
They're gonna release that anyway because
And actually,
of
I've
the
seen the.
popularity of the CW series.
I think I seen the trailer in theaters. I know I saw it on YouTube, but I think I also saw it in theaters for the
It's on
Flash.
several cable. It's also on several cable channels. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they are going to release it, much to the chagrin of everyone else.
Yeah.
so-
It doesn't look half bad from the trailers, but it's still, I think, gonna be terrible.
The
Yeah.
trailers are only designed to get your butt in the seat.
Yeah.
You know,
Unf-
hey Rick, I know you often comment how you publish Christian comics.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this or not, but you're not necessarily the first publisher to do that.
Oh, I know. I'm not the first. Well,
Because
Archie did. Archie
you
had
know,
some Christian
like
comics.
even before I did started doing the historical comic retrospect in the form I'm doing it now, I'm still doing it just for myself. Just doing it for myself. And just focusing on the DC universe and all that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I found out, you know, Standard, one of the one of the companies we'll be looking at pretty soon here. Standard was actually quite well known for doing a lot of like family friendly and or like Christian type comics and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, even DC for a while did some Bible story comics.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when it's going to be released. I think this year or next year, but I think this year sometime. Laura?
Yeah. I guess she's asking about when the Flash is going to be released, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
but
said, if you look for the trailer on YouTube here, you should be able to find it. I'm not sure whether it says in it or not.
it'll probably be sometime this summer.
Yeah, I know Michael Keaton's actually going to be in it.
Yeah.
There was some discussion on whether or not, you know, there were some people wanting to see him in it and some people who weren't. So there was a lot of discussion about that. So,
But yeah, well, I've known about other Christian comic companies, maybe not the one like Standard, but there's another guy out there, Grok Comics. There's ones that do Bible stories. There's a few others that do um, superhero stuff or whatever,
yeah.
even fantasy.
Why I don't remember the actual name of the guy. I do know that RJ recently had an interview with a guy who was also another like Christian comic book company, but I don't remember the actual name. So Laura was saying here, okay, thanks. I'll look for those trailers. Okay.
Well, if you think about it, if you go back through Charlton catalog, you will find a lot of Christian stories there.
Yeah.
Well,
But
Charlton also did a lot of IP work too. They did
Yeah.
comic adaptations, a lot like Looney Tunes, Hanna-Barbera
Mhm.
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, Charlton did that. Gold Key, Dell, and Gold Key did that. He had a number of companies that would basically
Mhm.
even Marvel and DC at certain points would do a lot where they bring in IPs from other media and make comic edits. I know, like Gold Key, for example, did the original Dark Shadow series.
Yeah.
Gold Key did Battle of the Planets too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Marvel for a long time. Marvel, I think, for a long time did like the original Transformers comic, based on.
They did.
Yeah,
They
I
did.
have almost all of those.
I have some of those, and I have some of the GI Joes, and a couple of the crossovers that they did.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's even a few Christian comic companies, Christian and superhero ones. But
Mhm.
I plan myself to have the biggest one. I want to
Mhm.
be as big as DC and Marvel once were.
Big aspirations for Rick.
Dream big,
Yes.
Rick. Dream big.
Yeah. Hey,
Oh, Rick,
I
Rick
say
will
as
do
big
it.
as they once were because I used to say as big as they were, but now they're falling. So you know, hey, maybe if they fall far enough, I get enough money, maybe I can acquire some of their characters.
Well, I know that
Superman
there
will be
was.
I
coming up
don't doubt it,
in a
but
few years.
I know that there was a character we were talking about recently that you actually were doing some drawings for as well, Rick. I think it was the Flame from
Oh
Centaur.
yeah.
Um,
Oh
um,
yeah.
well, I haven't done it yet, but I want to do. I'd like to do some sort of crossover with my character with that one,
Mhm.
and actually, sort of based on what you were reading, um, the last time, on Friday, uh, I have a character name. You were reading about the dog, from it, and
oh,
Yeah.
Orangutan?
how I think, Ricky Waters or whatever, or no, I forget what the name was,
Oh,
but I have a
the police dog. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Orangutan was a dog who became a police dog. But I think when we were looking over the intro, right, when we were doing the intro, they did mention that later he was paired up with a kid named Richie Waters, Richy.
Mhm.
yeah,
Waters.
yeah. Well, I have a character. I believe it's Rick Waters. I took my name and combined it with a friend of mine's name.
All right.
You have
um,
to be
but
careful with that one.
yeah, well, that character's public domain too now. So, and he was
I
amazing.
mean the check the trademark.
Yeah, well, he's never gonna have his own title, if you will.
Oh.
So at least
I mean,
not where I'm gonna.
you could just name it something else for the story and still have the character be the name that it is.
So
Yeah.
Laura here was saying that Battle of the Planets was my favorite cartoon as a kid. I would love to see those comics. Yeah, well,
I have one of them.
yeah. Well, here's
You'd
something
you'd
else.
have to search. You'd have to search far and wide for those.
Yeah. Well, also there's a little bit of a controversy with Battle of the Planets too, because the Battle of the Planets, of course, was based on the Japanese anime known as Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, which came out in '72. Okay, so when Sandy Frank decided to license it for American audiences, they tried to turn it into basically more into a kids show, and
I like
because
Gatchaman.
of that, if you think about it, if let's say a standard anime is without commercials, sans commercials and all that, is 24 minutes.
Mhm.
They quite literally cut out a third of the show to try to make it more kid friendly. They literally, out of that 24 minutes, they cut out 8 minutes of that. And what ended up happening, they had to fill that time back in. So what they did was they created Seven Zark 7, to fill that time out. Seven's Arc 7
Yeah.
was not a part of the original
No.
Yeah.
Ninja Team Gotcha match.
Oh,
That
see,
was
I've
something
never
they had
seen
to
this.
add in there to
This
fill
Battle
in.
of the Planets.
The-
I've only ever seen subs of Gotchaman.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
the thing is, there was another show they tried to reboot it, and they just called it G-Force.
Yeah, that was in the late '80s. That
Mhm.
was, I think, ran on TBS for a while there, and
Yeah.
they had
And this
pretty much they had restored almost all of the original stuff from that.
Yeah.
I think I might want to watch the original. I know I loved Battle of Planets as a kid, but I went to rewatch it and I can't stand Seven's Arc 7. I just want to punch
Yeah,
that.
and
R2
then, well,
wannabe.
and in the history of that franchise, right? In 2005, I believe it was 2005. I believe
Hmm.
80 might have been later, might have been 2008, somewhere in there, something in the mid to late 2000s. There, ADV had actually licensed Science Ninja Team Gatchaman and had dubbed it and had basically dubbed it as it was.
Hmm.
Not they didn't do any editing to it. They did including all the excess violence, all that
Yeah.
I should look that out. Gatchaman dubbed. But and hopefully nobody will confuse the G-Force of Battle of the Planets with G-Force, the movie dealing with the guinea pigs.
I completely blocked that out of my memory until you brought it up.
What was I saying?
I thought it was very
when you
bad taste
first see
that they
the
stole
name of that
G-Force's
movie,
name, those
it's
guinea
like
pigs.
if you grew up with Battle of the Planets or G-Force, you hear the name G-Force, you're expecting one thing.
Not
Well,
guinea
if you,
pigs.
if you
That's
think
for
about
sure.
if you think about it too, Terry, if you think about it too, those two dubs were like 8 years apart from each other.
I know.
The Battle of the Planet dub was done by Sandy Frank Production in 1978.
Hmm.
And I believe the G-Force dub came out. I believe that it was in '86. I believe they were only like 8 years apart from each other. The
Yeah.
two, and Laura's saying here, cool. I did not know the franchise history behind it. A lot of people didn't. I even was
A lot of
surprised
people
by
did.
it.
Yeah.
You
Well, it's
know,
because it's an
but
older show,
the thing
you
is
know.
the term they came to use for that type of editing was Bowderization. That's a term for it that they came up with.
Yeah.
I was actually just talking about Gatchaman from the chat position on one of my other friends' streams because they were talking about My Hero and how they were saying like, oh, this kind of like Western superhero aesthetic and stuff is pretty novel for Japan. It was like, no. It
No.
took a break because of 80s action movies, and then Dragon Ball just influenced a
Influenced
couple of
everything.
generations. But if you go like to cartoons around the time or before that, or even manga, there was a lot of like Cape Comic influence and stuff, and even like Gatchaman, where their exploits are closer to like pulp in scale. They're very
Yeah.
much just cape heroes. They wear capes and spandex and stuff. And there's plenty of other ones, Kinnikuman,
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Birdie the Mighty. There's a lot of just like really Western influenced Japanese stories out there.
Yeah.
Well, what's kind of funny too. There's a Japanese anime that really took a very interesting twist on a historical figure that I kind of watched. It was quite a surreal series. Metal, you might have heard of this one, Le Chevalier d'Eon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So, Le Chevalier d'Eon was about. It was actually based on a real person named Deon de Beaumont, who was a knight in the service of King Louis, but essentially he supposedly had some kind of condition where he did not fully go through puberty.
Yeah.
So he had very effeminate characteristics, and he became a pretty well-known spy, and had actually ended up befriending Catherine the Great of Russia. Well, when the creator of the manga and anime Le Chevalier d'Eon got hold of this story, they really they took quite a bit of a surreal twist to it. So supposedly what they did with it was instead of having them basically the same person or or initially as one person, they introduced them as two different people. That Dion's sister was Leah de Beaumont, and she was somehow mysteriously killed. And they had kind of had an interesting take on alchemy too. So there were certain like magicians that were based on, again, historical figures, who they would be able to cast their spells by like air writing the spell in the air, which was pretty interesting. But she was killed in somewhat of a gruesome manner. Her soul was, I guess, put into a sword or something like that. And when Dayon got the sword, her spirit supposedly possessed him, and he could somehow metamorph back and forth between himself and his sister.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
And you had
which is not that weird.
You had quite a number of.
It's not that weird, especially if you've read Ranma 1/2.
Queen Antoinette. Well, yeah, Ranma 1/2 is another one. That one was, well, the character, if he was, I don't remember the exact situation.
It's cold water returned him into a woman, hot water returned him back. Ranma happens to actually be my favorite comic of all time.
Yeah, it's good and it's fun. It's a fun read because you get so wrapped up in the story, you forget which half of them actually is on the case.
But yeah, there are some very interesting surreal anime out there too at times. We were talking about Le Chevalier Dion, Ranma 1/2. It does kind of but how is so actually there's another like slice of life series that I'm watching again right now as part of my my block. They have kind of more of a surreal opening to it. It's called DG Carrot Neo. I don't know if you guys I take it you guys have one of you at least has, because DG Carrot Neo.
That's a fun one. Yeah. The only problem is the Japanese do slice of life on the scale as Archie comics, without even trying to offend anybody.
Well, in that particular case, but the part of that was surreal is the opening, because what you have there, of course, you have all these what look like older guys, like older men,
right,
like 40, 50-year-old guys who I guess have become a bunch of fanboys for Dejiko, because they're like, you got them, got the bells in their hair, and they dyed their hair green, and they're like, it's kind of surreal. I mean, some people might say it's almost scary. Some people I would think.
You have to look at it like this, Mike. You have to look at it like this. It's a story for fanboys. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It just takes the fanboy and put it in the story.
I like it. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun story, and the exchanges, particularly between the three female characters of Dejiko, Puchiko, and
right.
Well, some of it's pretty adorable. Like Puchiko's interaction with the elderly couple who run the confectionery. That's adorable, because it's like for the older couple, it's like, oh, this is the granddaughter. We actually have a little granddaughter that we can tend to now.
Yeah.
With our grandkids being far away and stuff. Of course, now the English voice actors who provide the voices, Chris Sims does Dejiko, Marriott Sluter does Puchiko. Marriott Sluter was has been in a number of things, including Mei Fong Lee and Angel Lynx.
Right.
Marriott Sleuth has been in a few, and then Caroline Day, who's another person who does a lot of work for out of Blue Water. She's Robbie and Rose, Hikaru Usada. She's also, of course, Caroline Day has also done as I'm trying to think here, she was played Mai Tohika in the My Hime and My Tomei franchise.
Yeah.
She's in a lot of things too. I mean, almost everything too. So, and I've talked to I've actually talked a bit to Carol and her now husband Lucas Gilbertson's another voice actor based out of Calgary, and another one named Hans Wachenschauser. Wachenschauser. They're really cool people. They're
Yeah.
they're not like the people we've seen in Dallas. These people are actually seem pretty cool and nice. They don't seem to be too political or anything like that. They're just kind of doing their own thing. It's kind of a shame that Blue Water isn't getting a lot of work on its own anymore because they dubbed some pretty good series. I mean, My Hime, my Atome, Flame Rekka. We just mentioned DG Carrot. They were probably the least well known of what I call the 6 dub capitals. So, but they seem like a pretty nice.
Well, I think the bigger problem is that Funimation is actually just giving Dallas a really bad name when it comes to voiceover, because there's a lot of smaller studios over here that are just perfectly fine, but obviously the only thing anybody ever thinks about is Funimation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you knew this, Tommy, but Vic got together with Anime Matsuri, and he's kind of trying to run his own little studio.
Yes, down in Houston. I actually covered this. Yeah,
bringing in some of the old Funimation voice actors who are not part of that crowd. I think some of them who have done work with him include Wendy Powell, Linda Young. I think some of Elise Bauman. I think some of them have. These are people who weren't getting involved in the whole. Let's just totally trash it. Let's make it. Let's call him Predator. Let's call him this, that, and the next thing. And
and I think it's good to if you aren't getting involved in that, to jump onto whatever Vic's starting up, because he has a lot of connections with the Japanese industry. There's a lot of people who really like Vic over there, so he's going to be able to get stuff.
Yeah,
he's gonna get a lot more stuff than anyone else because of all of his connections.
Well, he's also still, he may not be going to all the conventions, but he's still going to quite a number of conventions. Even, it's kind of fun. It's kind of funny because, and we talked about this too in the situation with Vic, where their whole intent was to basically completely eliminate him from the industry altogether.
Yeah.
And why they did knock him down quite a bit. They didn't knock him out. They failed in that. Okay. In fact, their efforts almost seemed to backfire, because if anything, he ended up becoming more popular.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that everything everything they called him out on, maybe should have been called out.
Yeah.
But I myself, and I don't know about you, Metal, but I've met Vic before, and I knew what they were saying about it. Based on my own interactions with him, I knew what they were saying about him was BS. Okay.
I've met him. He's the nicest guy you ever meet.
Can't say I've had the pleasure. He's one of the few people that I haven't had a chance to meet, but even then, you can just tell all the time. Yeah, I would like to meet him.
He's the type of person you want to be around. He now, a lot of people have claimed he's of Italian descent, comes from a culture where they are very affectionate. Now, the only thing that I have, in terms of all the quote unquote evidence people presented as to him being a quote unquote predator or this, that, or Nick. The only thing where I thought, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best thing for him to do. The only thing that I would have, kind of somewhat criticized him on or suggest, hey, maybe you shouldn't have done this. There was an incident back in 2013 where he was hosting a cosplay convention.
Mm-hmm.
He dressed up as Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And he had this little girl come. Now, I'm not as hard as now. When I've covered this, I was not as hard on him. I still had my criticisms over it because of the situation, but I was more critical of the parents of the child, and I'll explain why in a moment here.
Mm.
So you have this little girl who is, if I had to take a wild guess, she was approximately 3 to 5 years old.
Okay.
She was a toddler, early childhood. She came out dressed as Wonder Woman.
Oh.
Okay? Now, Vic, what many people would argue was just dad humor. He kind of now, and when I saw this, I thought, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have really said that, Vic. But he basically kind of said, now people would play it off as being dad humor, and I would kind of agree with it, but I still don't. It's even in 2013, probably not the wisest thing to do. But he kind of said, so what are you doing after the show? That's what he said. To the little girl. Now, I think most people would agree it was more done as dad humor. It wasn't as anything serious. But even I kind of had to cringe a little bit because, okay, maybe not the wisest thing to do. Because even in 2013, you knew, even though we didn't have the woke revolution until Trump basically in 2016 and all that, but
not the wisest thing to do. I think he was just playing also into the Captain Kirk type role.
Yeah, but I was actually when I covered that, I was more critical of the parents because, especially now everybody here, I'm sure knows the publication. You guys know I've talked about this several times. Publication of history of Wonder Woman. Those creating her and what they were into. We've talked about that on
Yeah, but it's probably just a little girl that's watched Wonder Woman, likes Wonder Woman, and
but
no different than a guy dressing as the Flash.
Why would parents let their three, especially well, granted, I know not everybody knows it's only those of us who are more like what comic geeks or whatever who might know some of the publication history. But why would any parent allow their 3 to 5 year old daughter
to dress as Wonder Woman?
To dress up like Wonder, go.
Well, it depends on which Wonder Woman you go with, too. Which look.
The thing is, you have to understand most parents.
Traditional Wonder Woman who was more scantily clad, so
yeah.
I mean, you're just kind of. It kind of reminds me of. Have any of you seen the show Seventh Heaven?
Yeah. I've seen the whole thing.
Okay, so
I regret it.
I mean, there was a particular scene between Catherine Hicks, Mackenzie Rossman, and
I know the episode you're talking about.
Basically, Mrs. Camden, Annie Ruthie, and where Ruthie was wanting to go to the concert of this popular girl group, and Ruthie, as a little girl, I think at the time she was, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. She wanted to dress up like the girls
in the group,
in the group, but for a girl her age, it was considered
inappropriate.
It would have been considered inappropriate. Annie at first would say, "No, forget it. You're not leaving this house dressed like that." And Ruthie couldn't really understand. Now, this was the episode where they were talking about the idea of treating women with respect and keeping certain comments and all that. So that was the episode. But there was this one point in that episode where Annie sat down with Ruthie and Lucy, feeling that she needed to have this discussion with them, even though Lucy kind of already knew, understood it, but she was trying to get okay, Ruthie, why do you want to dress like this? And Ruthie responds, well, because it's sexy. And then Annie asks her, do you know what sexy means? And then Ruthie goes, no. And Annie goes, well, don't you think before you start dressing that way, you should understand what it means? And then she kind of got it after that. It's like, and one of the other aspects of that conversation she talked about was, yeah, we should be able to live in a world where women could go out in anything they want and not have to worry about it.
Right.
If they want to go out in a t-shirt and jeans, they should be able to do that. But the problem is that unfortunately, with the way our society is, sometimes there are men out there who don't see women as people; they see them as meat. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
accordingly, and that was the whole, that was basically the whole message of that particular show, was the idea of treating women with proper respect. But that basically what that scene with the little girl, the Wonder Woman, kind of reminded me of. It's like, why would a parent even let the 3 to 5-year-old leave the house dressed like one? Now, Grant, I know that a lot of parents today probably don't know the publication history. They don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, probably most
they
of them
have very little knowledge of who William Moulton Marston is. They don't know what he was into or what he did and what a lot of these earlier Wonder Woman stories really entailed.
Right.
I'd say most people's thing of Wonder Woman,
the TV show,
Linda Carter TV show,
the live action TV show, Super Friends,
right,
or Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah.
That would be their concept of Wonder Woman. And in a lot of ways, although I know a little bit of the publication history, that's still my image of Wonder Woman, even more of maybe the Gal Gadot version nowadays.
Yeah.
Well,
what I was
okay,
say is, like, really all this was Vic subconsciously prophesizing that the actor who plays Kirk is going to end up with Wonder Woman later on, many years down the road.
Or Wonder Woman type.
Did that actually happen though? Did that actually happen?
No. But he played the love interest in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. So that was. But basically, my criticism of Vic on that was that might not have been the wisest thing to do to make that comment. Because even in 2000, even though we didn't have, as I said, the woke revolution until like 2016 and Donald Trump and all that, and cancel culture and all that, even though some people would even argue that it even started as early as 2015. Because I know RJ's mentioned one of the earliest incidences was when they supposedly turned Iceman gay just by Jean Grey.
Oh yeah.
Telepathically.
Oh, I thought it was all the years of living with Spider-Man.
Huh?
So I thought it was all the years of living with Spider-Man that turned him gay.
No. If only.
Hey, they live with what's her name?
The series you're talking about, Spider-Man and Amazing Friends.
Amazing Friends, yeah.
There's Angelica Jones Firestar in that too.
Oh, this is a multi-layered joke because there's
I got the joke.
Yeah.
I got the joke, which is why I said if it were only that easy.
Well, of course, the 3 voice actors who played Peter Parker, Angelica Jones, and Bobby Drake in the series from that we grew up on in the 80s was Dan Gilvezan provided the voice of Peter Parker in that, who also provided the voice of Bumblebee in the Transformers G1 cartoon and Slipstream in G.I. Joe Real American Hero. And I believe it was Kathy Garver who provided the voice of Angelica Jones Firestar, and veteran voice actor Frank Welker provided the voice of Bobby Drake, of course, who also, of course, as we know, most famously is the of all the Scooby-Doo actors, the longest running one as Freddy, Freddy Jones, among other things.
Among other things.
Frank Welker also did a number of characters on Transformers, including Megatron, Soundwave, all of Soundwave's cassettes, Skywarp, Trailblazer, Mirage.
That's a lot of Transformers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did a lot of transforming of his voice.
I mean, that you can say that's kind of true because obviously many of those characters had, obviously, particularly, I mean, think about it with Soundwave and having that like kind of digitized sound to it too,
Right.
Or doing some of the vocal effects for like Ravage and Laserbeak and Buzzsaw, and later I think he even did Ratbat too when he was introduced in season 3. So I mean,
there wasn't. Well, there was most of the cassettes didn't talk. So
Yeah. Of the cassettes that did talk, you had Rumble and Ravage. Not Ravage.
Frenzy.
Well, those are more. They would transform into robots.
Yeah.
They didn't transform into animals. They actually turned into like robots. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, what's kind of funny too is that Blaster. They later introduced Blaster having cassettes as well, and
they did that in season 2. I remember that.
John Hostetler provided the voice of Ramhorn, who John Hostetler, of course, also did the voice of Bazooka in the 80s G.I. Joe cartoon. So, isn't this amazing how much I know about voice actors?
Might be a bit scary.
You'd be surprised at how many voices that a single voice actor does in a single cartoon.
Not really, because I've seen my fair share of Looney Tunes. I know, like in a lot of the Warner Brothers, Merry Melody, and even the MGM cartoons, there's usually only one or two people doing all the voices.
You're right.
All the cast. Go back to those, and like Mel Blanc did, with the exception of maybe like some of the female characters and some of the younger sounding characters.
Right.
Mel Blanc just did just about everything. I think the only actually that's not completely, because I know in the case of like Elmer Fudd, it was actually Arthur Q. O'Brien who did the voice of Elmer Fudd.
But there are a lot of episodes where he's just talking to himself.
Yeah.
Well, so like 80-90% of the characters he did.
Right.
Right.
Including, of course, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck, yeah. My favorite voice from Mel Blanc is that of Barney Rubble.
Oh, same. That's my favorite one.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're already at an hour 52. So unless there's anything else that would cross your mind, I think we'll start to wind up. We'll do this weekend in each history segment, then we'll wrap things up. What do you guys say? You guys agree? You guys like that idea?
Sounds good.
Yes, all I want to say was my runner-up is Marvin the Martian. That would be the second one after Barney Rubble.
Yeah.
The intergalactic space modulator has been stolen.
All right. So without any further ado, guys, as we're about to start wrapping things up here, today is Sunday. Well, stick around because we got just a couple more little things here, Britt. We got this day in each history. You get to learn some more about what's coming up from the past here. But with that, anyways, anyways, let's take a look back at this day, this weekend in each history. And Rick, I see you've already put your
link
up. Okay. So
just for case anybody
fire up the Wayback Machine.
Yep.
As we say.
So first off, we're gonna head back to 80 years ago yesterday, back to 1943. As on this date in 1943, at the 15th Annual Academy Awards, the Walt Disney Company's animated short Der Fuhrer's Face wins an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. Now, I don't know if this one would still be in circulation or not.
No.
It sounds like
The reason why, because it depicts a poor reference to Adolf Hitler.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of the banned cartoons that you'd see on YouTube. Even though this was an award, this was one of
It won the award because of the time it came out.
Right. It was a war propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Show.
Everyone was making fun of the Emperor of Japan and Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And every now
you're
and
saying
then you
it's
see
not winning any
Mussolini show up.
awards today?
It wouldn't work today because everybody's trying to be friends with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyways, on yesterday's date, 80 years ago, the Walt Disney Company animated short Der Fuhrer's Face won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. So, anyways,
I guess good for them. 80 years ago.
80
It
years.
was. It was.
It was a war propaganda cartoon. Of course it was.
Was.
All right. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece in each history, going back just 10 years ago today, as on this date, 10 years ago yesterday, 10 years ago yesterday, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the First Niagara Center in Buffalo, New York. This would mark Undertaker's first TV appearance in a while. The main event saw CM Punk defeat Randy Orton, Sheamus, and Big Show in a fatal four-way for the right to face the Undertaker at WrestleMania 29.
Right.
That's fairly close to me too.
Yeah.
Buffalo,
among some of the other matches included the New Age Outlaws, Billy Gunn and Road Dogg Jesse James defeating Epico and Primo, the nephews of the famous Carlos Colon of World Wrestling Council. Alberto Del Rio defeating Wade Barrett. Brodus Clay, who is known to everybody now as Tyrus, the current NWA World Champion, teamed with Tensai, a.k.a. Matt Bloom, a.k.a. Albert, to defeat who at the time had Cameron, Naomi, and a Honky Tonk Man in their corner, defeating the team of 3MB of Drew McIntyre and Heath Slater with Jinder Mahal in their corner in a matter of 24 seconds. Hell No of Daniel Bryan and Kane. Daniel Bryan, of course, Bryan Danielson, AEW now, defeating the tag team of the primetime players of Titus O'Neil and Darren Young. You had Jim Duggan with the late Dusty Rhodes and Sergeant Slaughter in his corner, defeating Jack Swagger, of course, going by his real name of Jake Hager in AEW right now. And the Miz defeating Dolph Ziggler as well. And then you had Ryback defeating Antonio Cesaro, a.k.a. Claudio Castagnoli of AEW, and the current Honor champion. And then Mark Henry defeating Zack Ryder, a.k.a. Matt Cardona, former NWA World Champion. Or if you've been watching Impact of late, as Joe Hendry would put it, Matt Cardona is Edge's, well, I'll use a more proper term for it, but you'll get the point. Matt Cardona is supposedly Edge's female dog. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I got it.
Now, I was kind of even when I heard about that, I was even kind of wondering why that was, because I didn't even know Cardona and Edge had any kind of connection. And when I look back on it, Cardona was part of the La Familia faction of the early, I guess, 2010s with Edge and Vicky Guerrero and Brian Myers under Kurt Hawkins. So basically, Joe Hendry made the whole thing of Matt Cardona more specifically, but also hinted that Brian Myers was also Edge's female dog. So anyway, so we got to do one more piece in each history here. And that actually happened on this date. Back in time, I'd say about 20 years ago, if I remember correctly. on this day 20 years ago, Image released the first issue of PvP. This is a book that apparently ran for about 45 issues, sold at the time of $2.95, had 32 pages. Oh, there you go with that one, guys. I thank everybody for. Well, with that, guys, that's all we have on that. So to finish things off, of course, I'm gonna go around the horn here to let everybody kind of do their outro. Rick already put his link up. We'll start with Rick, and then go down to Tommy, and then go down to Terry, and then I'll finish things out. So, Rick, go for it.
Hey, well, I am Rick Piper of Cross Comics. I do live streams every Tuesday from 10 Eastern till about midnight. And I put out other short stuff of comic stuff that I'm working on. And you can find me pretty much on all social media as Cross Comics. And get what you can till Tuesday or Wednesday. Uh, my comic over on Indiegogo, Canadian Shield 2 and Snowdrift 1. As soon as I get the books in hand, or shortly thereafter, the campaign will be going out of in demand. And there is my link to my channel in the.
All right. Well, Tommy, your turn, and of course, if you want, you can share your link again, just for those who may have came in a little late or whatever. And
Yeah. I'm the metal. I make comics and I run shows. My stories and comics you can find at xdynamuschaos.com. There's a main web comic by the same name, but a bunch of other stuff under there too. And the bi-weekly show that I run, or semi-weekly show, is the Vomitorium, which covers a lot of like news and stuff in this general like geeky, nerdy, random cultured stuff, whatever interests me at the time. I mean, 2 weeks ago we were talking about brains and vats and stuff. I don't know. I jump all over the place, but it's a fun show, and we do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 6 Central in the evening.
Well, we do know that Bruce Wayne has a very powerful brain, don't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
right.
we do.
Are you done, Tommy?
Yep.
All right, Terry.
Well, you can find me this Saturday doing the draw along on my channel. Those of you following Rick are free to come and join us.
All right, anything more, or is that it?
Oh, that's it for now.
Just gotta put a link to your channel in the chat for people.
Yeah, you might want to do that.
Yeah.
So people know. All right. Well, as he's doing that, of course, you guys can catch us here 6 nights a week. Sundays, of course, are our panel discussions where we invite the guys on, talk all things niche, and then of course Mondays we do kind of the DC and Marvel releases, go over those. Tuesday to Thursday we do a niche newscast, and then on Fridays that's our historical comic retrospect, where we of course are in a very methodical manner, going back to the history of comics. This Friday, we'll be continuing our coverage of September 1939, focusing in on the comic that was on sale from Harvey Comics, known at that point as Brookwood Publications. Rick will, of course, be joining me this Friday as we go over Speed Comics number 2, Volume 1, number 2. We'll be looking at characters like Shock Gibson, Ted Parrish. I think there's one other guy, but I think Tex Tyler maybe as well. So with that, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow and every night as we get into the world of niche and everything. I just noticed a private chat.
Yeah. Like I said, it won't let me post it in the comments.
Are you
not? I'm not on YouTube. That's the thing.
Okay. Copy link. All right. Let's see if this will help. Then I'll post it for you then.
Thanks.
All right, so that's the link right there to Terry's channel. I probably should have said something more to it. Yeah, I'll even do this. This will probably.
Yeah, Mighty Geek Studios.
Yeah.
That will probably make it a little bit better. So just click that to head over to Mighty Geek, check out his stuff as well. So with that, guys, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow for more niche talk, for more niche news, niche talk, and all that. And until then, bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.